It wouldn't be autumn if I didn't splurge on a bunch of seasonal reads. I tried to gift myself with a good blend of stories, ranging from dark fairy tales to vampires, ghost stories to classics. And I've already discussed or will be discussing these books in my fall TBR videos if you want to check those out. Without further ado, these are the 8 books I purchased for fall and Halloween, because I have no self-control once I hear the words free shipping. My unplanned book splurge started with T. Kingfisher's Nettle and Bone. I've heard this book described as creepy but cozy, with Kingfisher reportedly being a versatile author who can switch between heartwarming and horrific. As a fantasy fan, I feel I've slept on the author, and with several booktubers I follow raving about her, the FOMO kicked in. We follow Mara, the youngest of 3 sisters, who decides to take matters into her own hands when she can no longer endure the suffering of her sister at the hands of an abusive prince. As someone who loves to enjoy fairy tales this time of year, this feels like a fun but dark subversion of something like Snow White, wherein the prince is the villain rather than the happily ever after. Plus, Mara seeks help from something known as a grave witch, so that alone screams Halloween to me. She's tasked with completing 3 impossible tasks, which also makes me think of the Greek mythology I adore. So I'm hoping Kingfisher can become a new favorite author. Ultimately, I wanted to treat myself to 2 or 3 books. We all know how that act of self-restraint went. But after Nettle and Bone, this was the second novel I was most hankering for. This is one of several ghost stories I've bought, and I blame Erin Morgenstern and TJ Klune for starting me on a ghost kick. But I digress. Our story follows Miles. Growing up in a small mining town, he soon learns that his little community hides sordid secrets. This is one of those villages where everybody knows everybody, and the reputation of any given family is predicated on what their ancestors did. When Miles digs up dirt on none other than the sheriff's family, he is violently attacked by the sheriff's son. Beaten violently nearly to death, he is then visited in the hospital by a ghost covered in soot. Meanwhile, Miles's family is still coming to terms with the fact he's trans, making him even more of an outsider in a tight-knit but secretly sinister community. Having read The Spirit Bears Its Teeth, Andrew Joseph White's Compound Fracture promises to evoke the same feelings of rage, isolation, and mystery, as we're again given a story wherein the ghosts of the dead clamor for the truth to be uncovered. Next, we have A Dowry of Blood. I don't know much about this story beyond the fact that it's a feminist perspective on the classic Dracula, telling the story of one of his many wives and her disillusionment in the face of how he treats her. Having loved Dracula when I read it, and being a sucker for vampire stories in general, pun fully intended, I've long been anxious to read this book, having heard great things. I hope it's good because I had a bit of an adventure to get it. I commuted all the way from Anmore to Surrey, which I thought would take an hour and a half to 2 hours if I was unlucky. It took 3 hours, and that was one way. I spent 6 hours on the bus and the SkyTrain for this novel, but I saved $17. This book retails for $27 and I got it for $10. Feel free to laugh at me, but I still plan to enjoy my hard-earned bargain. Shout out to Raf Bluetex for this next book. In response to my spooky TBR video, Raf Bluetex made a number of suggestions, and this book, A Fine and Private Place, intrigued me. The novel was written by Peter S. Beagle, and if that name sounds familiar, that's because Beagle also wrote the beloved The Last Unicorn. Having not only seen the film but read the book, I'm definitely interested in exploring more of Beagle's work. Plus, reading the synopsis for this book instantly reminded me of Under the Whispering Door, following, like Clune's book, the journey of a ghost from his funeral to a potential love interest. I didn't know ghost romance was a thing, or how much I needed it in my life. But here we are. I like that this is a book that hasn't been shared on any of the other fall reading lists I've seen thus far. Beagle is an author that isn't discussed much in general, beyond The Last Unicorn. So I'm excited to read a potentially underrated gem and explore more work from an overlooked writer. I said I was on a ghost kick, and I want to give a shout out to Darling Desi, who revealed the Dead Romantics to me in one of her fall TBR videos. I like her content because she often recommends fall-themed books I've never heard of. And again, we have a love story involving a ghost. I don't typically read more traditional romance novels, but I do like romance when it's mixed with other genres like fantasy or the paranormal. In Ashley Poston's novel, Florence Day, a ghostwriter of romantic fiction, slowly falls in love with her frustrating editor, who is now dead but is handsome as ever. I usually veer more towards spooky than cozy, but I wanted to have something more lighthearted. And this synopsis, again, just reminded me too much of Under a Whispering Door. Apparently, I need more love stories in my life involving a living person and a dead one falling for each other. Maybe I just need catharsis after the bittersweet endings of Ghost and Casper. Promising, according to the blurb, to be a dark retelling of The Goose Girl, shared by the Brothers Grimm, A Sorceress Comes to Call is another T. Kingfisher book perfect for autumn. Cordelia lives with her eccentric sorceress mother, but she's yanked from her small town, whisked away by her mother to a manor. There, Cordelia's mother wants to seduce a squire into marriage, which Cordelia knows will be disastrous for not only him, but his daughter Hester. Hester, meanwhile, clocks that all is not well between Cordelia and her mother, which ultimately leaves Cordelia and Hester to stop the sorceress' sinister scheme. I was fortunate to snag this book for a bargain at one of my favorite retailers, Book Outlet, giving me a second chance to explore more of T. Kingfisher's work. I've wanted to read more of Bradbury's work ever since I had his short story, The Veldt, burned into my mind in the 8th grade. But somehow I never got around to doing so. However, I finally picked up one of his most iconic novels, Something Wicked This Way Comes, which also inspired a film adaptation. While another of Ray Bradbury's books, Fahrenheit 451, has long been on the list of books I want to read, I thought I'd start with this one given its spooky undertone. In Greentown, Illinois, the lives of its residents are disrupted when, a week before Halloween, a carnival arrives. Known as Cougar and Dark's Pandemonium Shadow Show, it brings more than lights and fun. Soon, the townspeople are confronted with unimagined horrors. From what little I know of this book, I am strongly reminded of Stephen King's Fairy Tale. Ray Bradbury is undoubtedly an influence on many of the authors and books I already love, making this an essential read, and I'm particularly excited to have it for the fall. Last but not least, we have Tanare Du's The Reformatory. Along with T. Kingfisher, Du is an author I've been curious to try for some time. Reading the synopsis of this book, I was struck by the similarities between it and The Spirit Bears Its Teeth. Apparently 2023 was the year for haunted reform schools, though this time we follow Robbie Stevens, a 12-year-old boy sent to the school as punishment after defending his sister Gloria from the town's largest landowner. He's sent to the Gracetown School for Boys. but it's known unsettlingly as the reformatory. And once there, he's confronted by the ghosts of missing boys. Facing the terrors of the Jim Crow South, Robbie must contend with racism and prejudice, not only in terms of how they affect the living, but the dead. As for Gloria, she's doing what she can to secure Robbie's release from the school before the unthinkable happens. I look forward to finally diving into Dew's work and to reading another ghost story. Despite the similarities, I look forward to seeing how the reformatory differs from the spirit bears its teeth. This might just be my headcanon, but I'm pretty sure a ghost named Gloria was floating around in 2023 and reaching out to authors. Have fun sleeping tonight. I'd be happy to hear what you're reading, or if you've bought any books for fall. I'm also happy to take any more recommendations if you have them. From classic horror novels to Dracula retellings, dark fairy tales to ghost stories, I hope there's something here that intrigues you too. As always, thank you for watching and happy reading.